Hi, I'm Leigh Bortins of Classical Conversations. Welcome to our home here on Lake Ammon, and I want to welcome Wes Callihan.
Thank you.
He's here today because we had a Toward the Quadrivium event, which is our last of a series of 4 events that were obviously planned because of the word quadrivium, to have 4 of them. And Wes was invited today because he is very interested in the ideas behind astronomy and how they affect education and why we think of astronomy the way that we do. So we had about 60 people at the event today, and it was just really life-changing for me as well as for a lot of the folks that I talked to afterwards. Wes, your ideas on classical education and astronomy and just how it all ties into the Bible were really interesting. What did you get out of the event? What was your purpose in speaking?
Well, I enjoyed speaking there because although I never know who my audience is going to be, it gives me because I don't know who my audience will be, it gives me the chance to cast the net wide and start from the beginning and try and lay as much broad groundwork as possible and it depicts something like the topic of astronomy, one of the 4 topics of the quadrivium, in the bigger context of history. You know, why did educational history turn out the way it did? Why is astronomy one of the topics of one of the categories of the liberal arts? How does it relate to the literature that we read when we read the great books of the past and so on? And so I enjoyed, just for my own sake, being able to think through the things again and then present them to people who seem to be enthusiastic and interested in the topics that I and the other speaker presented, and it seemed to be well received.
Mm-hmm. It was. I know for me what was really interesting is how you tied together the fact that, you know, we know about astronomy, we know the seasons and things like that, but just the reality of how time and calendar affects our lives. And so, of course, astronomy affects everything we do. So that was the part that was life-changing for me, to see this is just incredibly important in everything I think. So I really appreciate it.
We've had conversations before where we've talked about how difficult it is to figure out just exactly what the quadrivium is and how we recover a sense of the quadrivium as a liberal art. I think we have a long ways to go, but things like that, looking back at history and seeing how Christians have treated the liberal arts, and in the case of today's conference, the art of astronomy, looking to see what they did in other times and other places gives us an idea of the principles that we could transfer and maybe start to incorporate in things like the project that you have going here in your home and the project I have in mind. People in other places, other Christian colleges, and new alternative higher education projects that are trying to recover what exactly higher-end liberal arts are.
What it's going to look like. So I'm the founder of what's called the Mandala Fellowship, and it's an organization of about 18 students who live in my community here in West End, North Carolina. And my husband and I, as well as Caleb Scogan, have worked really hard to work with the students to kind of recover the idea of a quadrivium education. We don't particularly know what we're doing. We know that we are studying arithmetic, geometry, harmonics, as well as astronomy. And that leads me, of course, to my friend here, Wes Callihan, who also runs Hill Abbey, which is a similar kind of program where he's exploring what does post-high school education mean and what's the quadrivium. And so you want to tell us about your program?
Sure. I'll say to begin with that I've been here for a day or two, sat in on some of the classes that your Mandala Fellowship students have been involved in, seen what Caleb is doing with them in music, see what you're doing with them in mathematics, heard about some of the other things that they do. It's a very impressive attempt to try and recover some sense of what the quadrivium is, and not many people are even attempting it. What we try to do at Hill Abbey is similar in some ways to what you do. We have students coming and living with us. You have them living nearby. We have them living in our house. A small number of students living with us, participating closely with us as part of the family. In Hill Abbey, we have a smaller number of students, and there's just me and my wife. Being a smaller program, we're not at the point where we have other instructors involved yet, or very few on a part-time basis. And so we have there are less things that they do in terms of a daily schedule that's full of things. We have something more like the monastic experience, where there's more contemplation, more meditation, classes where they get together with me or on their own, and they read books, and then spend a lot of time writing papers, presenting them at the end of the week, talking together with me. But it's a fairly quiet approach, and our focus is more on church history and on theology, which is something I think also needs to be recovered at the higher levels of education. But in order to really take advantage of an appreciation of church history and theology, my students ideally should have a good quadrivium background in order to make sense of it. So there are a number of things, the quadrivium and then the queen of the sciences, theology as Dorothy Sayers calls it, they need to be woven together, and I think we're approaching different parts of it in a similar way.
Yeah, it's really hard in a short time, and in the commitment we're giving where the students are really living with us. It's a lot of hours, a lot of emotional energy, a lot of just time to give more than a year or so to the effort, and yet a student's not going to learn all that we just described in 1 year.
Yeah.
And so figuring that out, how do you not maybe make it a 4-year program and you're done, and then the cost of that, and there's just a lot of factors to consider.
In both cases, the students commit to a 1-year program. You run from the summer to early the next, and mine is approximately the same time period. So at this point, our programs are structured such that they can do a 1-year program and then go on to a 4-year liberal arts college, or go into a vocational track at a state university or something. If we were to expand programs like ours further into a 2- or 4-year program, then that might take the place of a liberal arts college. But at the moment, it's a place where students can go who are still trying to firm up their understanding of the liberal arts that they got or presumably got as homeschoolers or in a private Christian school, and kind of put the capstone on that. So Leigh, you've started and been involved with Classical Conversations for quite some time. Tell me what Classical Conversations is, and what your involvement is.
We started in 1997. Basically, I wanted a classical education for my homeschool children, and as you learn more about especially the dialectic and rhetoric, you realize it's really hard to do alone, that you need peers to read Shakespeare with and talk about the Aeneid, and to practice grammatical skills and things like that. So we invited 11 students into our home and worked on the classical model, and within 2 years we had a waiting list of 300 students. So my husband was really great to quit work and say, let's see what we can do with this. And now in 2013, and we have 64,000 students. And so it's across the United States. The thing that differentiates our program from, say, a school program that's classical is our clients, our customers are not students. Our customers are their parents. We're not a drop-off program. The academics that the students work on once a week require the parent to stick around for the day. And we are trying to not usurp a parent's homeschooling responsibilities and their interest in just doing well with their children. We're trying to actually educate parents on how to use the classical model when they go home for the week. So our setup is such that for the younger years, we pretty much teach the parents and the students what to go home and do, versus on our high school level, it's the opposite. The parents and the students have a guide, they can follow that. We're more of a capstone, and so they've read the Shakespeare plays, now let's act them out together. They've read the chemistry text, now let's do the labs together. Okay. So that's pretty much us in a nutshell. So what would a student who's involved in the Classical Conversations at, say, mid-high school level, what does their week look like? How do they use the program? They would meet with us once a week after having completed their algebra lessons, their chemistry lessons, say that's the level they're at, their literature, some rhetoric courses, as well as, I said literature, like logic. It changes each year what they study, but the main things are grammar, exposition, and composition. And the grammar is Latin in our curriculum, as well as research, and that's our science topics. So that's kind of thing what differentiates us is we might say you're studying biology, but really we're teaching research skills. We might say that you're studying logic, but really we're teaching algebra skills. So we have this scope and sequence that is more skill-based, but the content, of course, is good classical literature, good just academic material.
Okay. And how do they meet with you?
Well, for instance, I'm a tutor of what we call Challenge 2. So I have 7 students this year, and they meet with me once a week with their parents. And I go over all 6 subjects that they're studying. So I'm the tutor for everything. So I'm tutoring Latin, Algebra 2, biology, literature, logic, and music history. So all of our tutors do that. We believe that a master teacher isn't someone who's a master at a subject. They're a master at actually teaching and can teach anything. Now, of course, their love and their passion for the subjects they love the most carries the day. That's what they probably do the best at. But it just seems funny to me to ask a 15-year-old to study 6 things when you don't have an adult studying 6 things, to model for them and to disciple them and show them, these are what I love, this is what's easy for me, and this is what I don't love, and so I have to work at this. that's
So you
with different
train tutors, master teachers, who then do what you've been doing. They meet with students once a week and go over their work with them.
Yep.
And how do you train the tutors?
A variety of ways. Everyone has a reading list they have to go through over the course of the year. Everyone has to attend a 3-day training event as well as 2 one-day training events. And then we have a learning management system of online courses that the tutors have to go through to help them throughout the year. And then at any moment we have what we call program support. And if they have a question about page 18 in the Saxon book or page 52 in the Logic book, there's an expert they can call.
Okay. And at what age does the classical conversation program begin for the students? When can they enter it?
As early as 4 years old and as old as 19.
Okay.
So I know that you've been doing similar things since 1997 also, so why don't you tell us about your online program as well as anything else you're involved in?
Well, I started Schola Classical Tutorials, my 4-year online great books and language program in 1997, which would have been right around the time I think you started Classical Conversations. And so for 17 or so years, I've been teaching students online. I have students around the country, 150, 200 students every year, who sign up for a 2-hour class once a week with me and 15 to 20 other students. And they'll go over the homework that I assigned on the previous week. We'll talk about their answers to prepared study questions, and then jump off from the study questions into more higher level thinking and so on. And so the program of what I've been teaching in Schola, the Great Books program, the 4-year program, is the backbone of what I teach. And the students there are exposed to the great books of literature, history, philosophy, theology, political science, and so on, from the Greeks to the Romans, to the medievals, to the early moderns. And then I also teach Greek, and I have taught Latin in the past. I teach church history and astronomy. And so it's roughly high school level, although occasionally I take younger students and occasionally take older students as well. I even have some parents sign up for my class, but it's geared roughly for that 14 through 18 period. So I've been teaching this for about 17 years, and I think I've developed some insights into what the books have to offer and what I want to, how I want to guide the students to start pulling out of the books what's in them. And so we've started filming the lectures that I present and putting them into a DVD package for parents. And this film set is called Old Western Culture, which is a term that C.S. Lewis coined in one of his essays to talk about the history of the great ideas and things that were shared in common, ideas, books, understandings about what culture is up until fairly recent times. And the gentlemen who are filming me doing these lectures and putting this package together are their company is called Roman Roads Media. And they have been videotaping this and putting together the Old Western Culture series, which is now has the first year out, the series on the ancient Greeks, and we're working on the Romans, and we'll produce the medievals and the early moderns eventually.
So we're way back from chronologically from old to new.
Exactly.
Great.
So following the roughly the chronological course that my Schola Classical Tutorials online classes do, but this is something that people can take home, and they can watch the DVDs, and there are workbooks provided, support provided, answer keys, and booklets and pamphlets as well. So there's complementary material to go along with the lectures.
So the parents aren't left on their own.
Exactly.
Good. We're just trying to help you have options.
That's right.